The clang of metal trays and the hum of idle chatter filled the Navy training base's mess hall. It was late afternoon, the kind of time when the day's exhaustion mixed with the faint scent of reheated rations and damp uniforms. Most recruits sat in groups, shoulders hunched, voices low. But in the far corner, one table had gone unusually quiet. That's where Avery Hale sat, alone. She wasn't your typical recruit. Her quiet confidence was unnerving. She never bragged, never joined in the locker room boasting that fueled most of the younger trainees. Her short-cropped dark hair, steady gaze, and deliberate movements suggested discipline, the kind that came from years, not weeks, of service. But to everyone else, she was just another new face. Just another woman trying to survive a place built to break even the strongest men. The rumors had started weeks earlier. "She's too calm," one recruit whispered. "Yeah, like she's done this before," another muttered. "She doesn't talk because she knows she won't make it." It didn't help that she'd outperformed nearly everyone in drills. She could lift more, run farther, and hold her breath longer underwater. Some of the guys, especially the younger ones, didn't take kindly to that. Among them was Rick Dalton, a broad-shouldered, loud-mouthed troublemaker who'd already been reprimanded twice for disrespecting superiors. He had a crew, 4 others who followed his lead like a pack of wolves. They called themselves the Barracks 5. They weren't bad soldiers, just insecure ones, desperate to prove themselves in a world where strength was measured in dominance. And Avery, calm and untouchable, made them feel small. That afternoon, the tension finally broke. Rick watched her from across the hall, his jaw tightening. "She thinks she's better than us," he said, voice low but sharp. "She's been acting all high and mighty since day one," another recruit, Parker, added. Rick smirked. "Then let's remind her this isn't her playground." The 5 of them stood, moving in slow unison toward Avery's table. The rest of the mess hall fell silent as they approached, the kind of silence that grows before a storm. Avery didn't look up right away. She was calmly cutting her chicken, every motion deliberate. Only when Rick's shadow fell across her tray did she glance up, her eyes cool and unreadable. "Well, if it isn't the mystery soldier," Rick said, grinning. "You've been keeping to yourself, Hale. What's the matter? Don't like talking to real recruits?" Avery's tone was calm, almost gentle. "Just prefer quiet meals." Rick's grin widened. "Oh, we can fix that." He grabbed her tray and shoved it off the table. It hit the floor with a crash, mashed potatoes splattering across her boots. Laughter rippled from his group. Avery blinked once, slowly. Then she stood. Even standing, she wasn't the tallest in the room, but something in her posture changed the air. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, there was a precision to her stance that didn't belong to a fresh recruit. It was the stance of someone who'd stood in darker rooms, facing worse men. "Pick that up," Rick sneered, stepping closer. Her voice was level. "You don't want to do this." "Oh, I do," he said. "You might have fooled the instructors, but you don't fool me. You think you're special because you can do a few extra push-ups. You're just..." He didn't finish. Avery's eyes flicked once, barely a movement, and the next second, Rick's wrist was twisted backward in a lock so fast and precise that the other recruits barely saw it happen. His tray clattered to the ground, his face twisted in pain. What the hell?" Parker stammered, taking a step forward. Avery's grip didn't loosen. "You done?" she asked Rick quietly. "Let go," he barked, trying to pull free, and instantly regretted it as she applied subtle pressure, forcing him to his knees. The mess hall froze. Forks stopped midair. Someone whispered, "Holy hell." Rick's crew wasn't used to being humiliated, especially not by someone half Rick's size. So, naturally, they lunged. Avery let go of Rick's wrist just in time to pivot sideways. Parker swung at her. She ducked, swept his legs out from under him with a movement so efficient it seemed choreographed. Another grabbed her from behind. She bent forward sharply, throwing him over her shoulder, sending him crashing onto the table. Plates shattered. The 4th came at her swinging a cup. She sidestepped, caught his arm, and redirected his own momentum, sending him sprawling into the wall. 30 seconds. That's all it took. When it was over, Rick was on the floor clutching his wrist, Parker groaning against a chair leg, and 2 others struggling to stand. Avery hadn't broken a sweat. She simply stepped back, adjusted her sleeve, and said, "Anyone else?" The silence was heavy, almost reverent. Even the cook stopped behind the counter, staring. Rick's eyes were wide, his pride bleeding out faster than his anger. You're not just a recruit, he managed, voice hoarse. Avery didn't answer. She bent down, picked up her tray from the floor, and calmly set it on the table again. That's when the door opened, and Commander Briggs, the senior training officer, stepped in, drawn by the noise. His gaze swept the mess hall, taking in the broken dishes, the scuffed floor, and the 5 recruits sprawled around Avery like dominoes. What in God's name happened here? He barked. No one spoke. Finally, Rick pointed at her. She attacked us. Briggs raised an eyebrow. Did she? He turned to Avery. Hale, you want to explain? She hesitated for only a second before nodding. They approached me, sir. Tried to start something. I defended myself. Briggs studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment, then sighed. Figures. He turned to the recruits on the floor. You 5 idiots just tried to jump Lieutenant Commander Hale, former Navy SEAL, Silver Star recipient, 10 years of special ops experience. She's here on an evaluation assignment. The room went dead silent. Rick's face drained of color. Avery didn't smirk or gloat. She simply straightened her uniform and gave a curt nod to Briggs. Next time, the commander said coldly, maybe think twice before picking a fight in my mess hall. Especially with someone who's saved more lives than you've had hot meals. He turned and walked out, leaving the stunned recruits staring after him. Avery sat down again, quietly, picked up her fork. The room buzzed with whispers, but no one dared approach her now. Rick, cradling his bruised wrist, muttered to his crew, she was a SEAL. That's impossible. Avery didn't look up. You'll learn something about possibilities here, she said softly. Mostly how small they get when arrogance gets in the way. And then she kept eating, calm, silent, unshaken, while the rest of the mess hall realized they'd just witnessed the moment their toughest recruits learned what real strength looked like. The next morning, the entire camp buzzed with whispers. Stories spread fast at Camp Wainwright, but this one moved like wildfire, 5 recruits down in 30 seconds. By breakfast, every barracks knew the name Lieutenant Commander Avery Hale, the mysterious, new recruit, who had, in truth, been a Navy SEAL hiding in plain sight. Even those who hadn't witnessed the mess hall incident spoke about it like they had. She dropped Dalton with one move. Didn't even break a sweat. I heard she's got classified missions under her belt. By the time the 0600 drill bell rang, the recruits stood straighter than usual. No one dared look her in the eye, yet everyone watched her from the corner of theirs. Avery didn't crave attention. She hated it, in fact. She hadn't wanted to reveal who she was. The Navy had sent her to Camp Wainwright on a quiet assignment, to observe new recruits, assess leadership quality, and recommend changes in training structure. She was supposed to blend in, not make headlines, but arrogance had a way of exposing itself, and sometimes, it forced her hand. As the recruits lined up on the training field, Commander Briggs paced before them, boots crunching in the gravel. His eyes swept over the ranks until they landed on Rick Dalton and his 4 battered companions. You 5, he barked, front and center. They stepped forward, shoulders tense, bruises still visible under their collars. Yesterday, Briggs continued, voice like steel, you made the mistake of mistaking discipline for weakness. You disrespected a superior officer, disobeyed base conduct, and embarrassed this unit. He paused, then turned slightly, looking toward Avery, who stood silently at the end of the line. But you also gave us all a demonstration worth remembering. The recruits murmured, unsure whether to fear or applaud. Briggs faced the 5 again. You're lucky she didn't file a report. You're luckier she didn't break anything. But she's requested something instead. Avery stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Permission to address the recruits, sir. Briggs nodded. Granted. She turned to face them all. Rows of young faces, some defiant, most curious, all listening. Yesterday, she began, her voice steady and low, 5 of you decided that strength is about how loud you are, how much you can intimidate, how much you can control. You thought leadership meant being feared. Her gaze swept over the field. It doesn't. Leadership is knowing when not to fight, when to respect someone you don't understand, when to see beyond ego. The silence was thick, even the wind seemed to stop. I've seen men, she continued, bigger than any of you, men who could crush bricks with their hands, crumble under pressure. Because they thought toughness came from muscles. It doesn't. It comes from character, from control, from knowing when to act, and when to stand down. Rick swallowed hard. The bruises on his pride ached worse than the ones on his skin. Avery glanced his way but didn't linger. You don't earn respect by demanding it. You earn it by showing it. Then she did something unexpected. She motioned toward the obstacle course nearby, a maze of mud pits, walls, ropes, and timed drills. "Commander Briggs," she said, "with your permission, I'd like to run today's training." Briggs folded his arms, smiling faintly. "Be my guest, Lieutenant Commander." Avery turned to the recruits. "Pair up. You'll complete the full course. Every obstacle. No one gets left behind. If your partner falls, you help them. If they fail, you both fail." There was a groan across the line. The recruits had learned the hard way that Avery's definition of training meant pain disguised as progress. As they scrambled into pairs, she walked along the line, stopping in front of Rick Dalton. "You and me," she said simply. His eyes widened. "Wait, what? Unless you're afraid," she said, tone neutral. Rick's pride bristled, but something inside him had changed since yesterday. He wasn't sure if it was fear, respect, or both. "No, ma'am," he said quickly. "Not afraid." "Good," she replied. "Then keep up." The whistle blew. They sprinted toward the first obstacle, a 6-foot wall. Rick was used to bulldozing through challenges, using brute strength. Avery approached differently. Fast, efficient, minimal wasted motion. She scaled the wall with fluid grace, using momentum instead of power. When Rick struggled halfway up, she didn't smirk or mock him. She crouched on top, hand extended. "Take it," he hesitated, ashamed, but finally, he grabbed her wrist. She pulled him up with surprising force. "Don't stop," she said. "Next one." Through mud pits, rope climbs, and balance beams, she pushed him, but not with insults or shouts. With quiet, relentless precision. Every time he stumbled, she steadied him. Every time he cursed under his breath, she told him, "Control your breathing. Not your anger." By the final stretch, they were both covered in mud, lungs burning. But Rick noticed something. She wasn't racing him. She was teaching him. When they finally crossed the finish line, the stopwatch read 9 minutes, 43 seconds, nearly 2 minutes faster than his previous best. Briggs, watching from the sidelines, gave a rare approving nod. Avery turned to him, chest heaving slightly but calm as ever. "Permission to debrief, sir." "Go ahead," he said. She faced the recruits again. "You see what happens when you stop fighting each other and start working with each other. You win, not just here, everywhere." Her gaze landed on Rick again. "The battlefield doesn't care who you are, where you came from, or how loud you are. The only thing that matters is trust. And that's something you build, not demand." The words hit harder than any punch could. After dismissal, Rick lingered. The others dispersed, whispering about how brutal and brilliant the session had been. Avery was cleaning her boots near the benches when he approached. "Lieutenant Commander," he said quietly. "About yesterday." She didn't look up. "You don't need to apologize to me." He hesitated. "I do. I disrespected you. I disrespected the uniform. I thought I had something to prove." Finally, she glanced at him, and for the first time, there was a hint of a smile. "You do have something to prove. To yourself. To the team. That you can be better than yesterday." He nodded slowly. "I will be. I know," she said simply, tightening the strap on her boot. "That's why I didn't break your wrist." He blinked, then, unexpectedly, laughed. "Fair point." As he walked away, the recruits who had once followed him now followed her. Not because she demanded it, but because she'd earned it. Later that evening, Commander Briggs found Avery in her office, reviewing notes. "You handled that better than I would've," he said, leaning against the doorframe. Avery smiled faintly. "They're just kids trying to act like soldiers. They'll get there." He nodded. "And you think you'll stay after the evaluation's done?" She looked out the window at the setting sun over the field, recruits jogging, laughing, working together for the first time. "I might," she said softly. "They remind me why I joined in the first place." Briggs chuckled. "And here I thought you just liked knocking sense into arrogant rookies." Avery's smile widened. "That too." Outside, the sound of drills echoed, boots stomping in rhythm, commands shouted with unity instead of pride. Among them was Rick Dalton, his posture changed, his tone respectful. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, one thing was clear: Camp Wainwright had learned a new kind of strength. Not the kind that came from fear. The kind that came from discipline, respect, and the quiet power of knowing exactly who you are, even when others don't.